There is one guest who gets more love via the email than any others, and no offence to the blokes that are coming up, but people love seeing Liz Storer on the telly. She's, of course, from Advance Australia, and she joins us now from Canberra. How are you, Liz? Lovely to see you on a Monday.
G'day, Paul. Good as always.
Good,
Thank you. Thanks
we'll bump you up
for
to
having me
daily, mate. We've got you weekly now. We'll eventually get you to daily. People love what you've got to say. Now,
Cheers.
You're part of the common sense force fighting against the lefties all day, every day. But what do you think about Nick Xenophon and his new position where he's out there publicly with a shingle to say, well, we can help advocate for you, we can help fight for you in the courts, we can help lobby and all the rest, and he's taking some cash from Huawei.
Indeed. This was very interesting, this headline today. Here we have Mr. Populist, Mr. Man of the People himself, an ex-senator who at the time marketed himself as, champion of the underdog. After a few months out of Parliament, here he is shilling for China. Also very interesting timing, I think. Reading the headline today, I was thinking, Nick, buddy, read the room. Every other day we've got a headline about China's alleged, we keep calling it alleged, so heck, I'll play along, the alleged foreign interference by China in our sovereign nation. But what I really can't walk past is the fact that here we have an ex-Australian senator working on the payroll of what is the largest Chinese privately owned company in the world. Huawei is a mammoth. It's in 170 countries. It services over a third of the world's population. This is no small fry we're talking about. He's now on their payroll and he doesn't get pinged with the foreign influence legislation that Tony Abbott got pinged for just months ago for speaking at a Conservative conference here in Australia. The absolute farcical nature of that law is just growing. Lastly, I just want to say mainstream Australians back the call of our government to ban Huawei. It's not just us who have done it. The Yanks have done it. The Kiwis have done it. Thanks, but no thanks, Huawei. We fully expect our government to put national sovereignty, our state sovereignty, above everything else. That's what they've done with this call, and we absolutely back it.
Well, and this is the thing. Huawei might not like it. Its Australian employees and advocates might not like it. But the truth is that a company owned by the Chinese is not like one that is owned by an American citizen who would not have links back to the government. That's why it ain't the level playing field. Now, you, like I, have just been... well, at first you roll your eyes, then you get genuinely annoyed about it, and then, surprise, surprise, a week after all of the noise and the carry-on, there's nothing to see here. Well, there was, the Canberra-Colombo game is what I've called it here. Detective Albo, cheered on by the media, who tried to make this out that the phone call between the Prime Minister and the head of the New South Wales Police was like Trump and the Ukraine, with The Guardian even running big screaming headlines that the Prime Minister refuses to release his notes. God, they got excited in the past week, didn't they?
Didn't they? Look, the pandemonium that broke out of this is just exceptional. Classic smear campaign by the left. And look, I can understand why they jumped on this, because Angus Taylor, look, he's a great minister, got one of the toughest portfolios in government, got one of the best clean track records of serving our country. He's got one of the biggest intellects in cabinet. They probably pounced on this with such vigour because they knew they may never get anything else on the guy. But this is absolutely rubbish from the left. Over what is essentially a typo, Angus Taylor has come out owning the mistake, apologising for the mistake. And can I just say, Paul, this is where the left lose mainstream Australia. Our nation is literally on fire, and there are any number of far more important issues to be talking about. Let's talk about housing affordability. Let's talk about, honestly, name it. Anything is more important than a jolly typo, and yet you haven't shut up about it for what is now weeks. Honestly, memo from mainstream Australians to Elbow and his team, drop this, move on and get on with your job, especially in the last sitting week of the year. Come on.
Well, I've got to say, you know, my eternal thanks to Angus Taylor are there, because if ever I do happen to wade into the internet toilet's door, that is Twitter, anyone who's got that little teardrop thing on it is immediately a sook, and that's, of course, all to do with Watergate. So you don't even bother reading. They just self-identify and you go, great, good, dickhead, move on. All right, last one here.
Yeah.
Religious freedom legislation. Prime Minister says no to this year. Obviously, there's only a couple of days left in the Parliament, so that's pretty obvious. I'm nervous about this legislation because I think that it doesn't apply evenly. I'm just not a fan of it as an idea. I don't necessarily think we need it. But what's your thoughts?
Oh, look, ideally, I think we'd scrap the thing entirely. Got to hand it to the government coming out with draft 2. This is something that should be liaised about heavily. There's so many stakeholders. But the problem with this legislation, Paul, and I'm sure you agree, is it's just absolutely impossible to get right. Essentially, this whole issue revolves around freedom of speech, a bastion of any free democracy. And I think any nation, as soon as they start legislating these kind of laws, you are on very, very, very dangerous grounds to talk about who can say what, the definition of vilification. And the problem with legislation like this, and we keep seeing this with 18C, the radical left weaponise legislation like this. So if we think for a second that this is actually going to stop them from vilifying everyday people, this goes beyond just religious freedom. It goes to the very heart of freedom in this nation. It's very dangerous ground. I agree with you. Very, very nervous about this. And I just, like I say, I hand it to the government doing their best in what's a very sticky situation. But I actually don't think there's a way you can get this right.
I'd just love to see a one-line piece of legislation go in which says Australians have the right to free speech, and just see who tries to amend it, how many vote for it, how many vote against it. Just put it as nice and clean as that, and then don't let it be interpreted, just let it be understood. Thank you, Liz. We love you, mate. Thank you, mate. Liz Stewart there from Advance Australia.